We've talked a lot about the lifestyle in Paraguay and also obtaining residency and immigration status in Paraguay. And today we're going to be looking at an updated guide, an updated version of what it takes and what you will need and what the processing time looks like in order to get residency in Paraguay in 2025. Now, in past years, we typically do see a change in the process of obtaining residency every few years in Paraguay. Typically, every 2 to 3 years, there is some sort of significant change, and in true fashion, 2024 was the same. Paraguay introduced the new chip cedulas, which are just starting to now roll out with the new cedulas that are being processed by immigration. And with these chip cedulas, it was now required to have 2 trips to Paraguay in order to complete the residency process. While this was the process initially before October of 2024, we were able to complete the process for clients in only 1 trip. This has changed with the new chip cards, the new chip cedulas. However, this may again change back to being only 1 trip in 2025. We are keeping our ears to immigration, seeing if there is a way around this. But as of right now, you will need 2 trips in order to obtain your temporary residency in Paraguay. So in this video, we're going to dive into what the entire process of residency looks like. So before we do, first I'm going to touch very quickly on some of the benefits of Paraguay. Of course, there are very tax advantageous benefits why many foreigners like to be here, but there's also the lifestyle. It's a very slow pace of lifestyle. And me, myself, I have been living in Paraguay for the past 6 months, have been coming on and off Paraguay for about the last 3 years now. And I really enjoy Paraguay, not only for a much quieter, simpler, green lifestyle, but also because the quality of food is very high. If you have been here before, you likely know, or you may have heard, that there is very good quality meat, specifically beef, in Paraguay. They are one of the world's largest exporters of beef, and so I really truly do enjoy the good qualities of produce and of meats that you can get even at a supermarket, not even a market here in Paraguay. So if you're looking for a quieter and a high quality life, then Paraguay may be the place for you. So if we're looking at residency here in Paraguay, there are 2 ways where you can currently obtain residency in Paraguay. The first is the standard method of first obtaining your temporary residency and then after 2 years transitioning that over into permanent residency, or you can apply for the Sauce program. Now, within this program, this is similar to an investor program. There is a certain amount of capital that needs to be invested in the country. So we're going to dive a little bit into both of these options. However, for both of these options, the documentation is quite similar. So if you're applying through the Sauce option, then you of course are going to need a business plan, which we assist with if this is the route that you are going. And then you're going to need to be investing 70,000 US dollars or more into Paraguay. Now, you do need proof of having that capital, having the 70,000 US through a bank statement before you actually go ahead and make the investment and get accepted into this program. However, for the standard application of temporary residence initially, or for the Sauce program, you also need your birth certificate, you need a national level background check, and you also need marriage, death, divorce, whatnot certificates. All of these need to be apostille. For the national level background check, if you have lived in another country for the past 3 years, a country that is not the country listed on your passport, in the past 3 years, then you're also going to need a background check from that country with an apostille. We will always verify this for our clients going through the various different pages of their passports before they arrive in Paraguay and when they're getting the documentation underway for the residency process so that we can confirm what immigration is looking for in the passports and if they may or potentially may not be needing additional background checks, because that is an additional step, and then you also have to get the apostille from that country. So all of these documents have a validity of 6 months. We often get questions from our clients where they hear it's been 3 months, the time frame has been changed for the validity of the documents. It is still 6 months. It always has been 6 months. Once the documents expire after 6 months, then you may need new documents. We'll get into this a little bit later for the schedule. So next up, after your documentation is confirmed by our team before you actually arrive in Paraguay, next up we have to complete the process on the ground. So this is the first step, and we will process your residency initially The second step on your second trip currently is where we will process your cedula. Now, in this first trip, we will take power of attorney so that we can handle the process once you are outside of the country, or once you are no longer handling this process yourself. We will then handle that through power of attorney. We need to go to the Interpol in Paraguay to get your background check done there, document translation, address verification. All of this is provided on our end. We need the life and residence certificate, and then we also may need to verify the funds and the business plan only if you are applying through the Sauce option. So there are various different steps within this process of attaining Paraguay residency. However, as mentioned, we assist in this entire process from A to Z. Essentially, all you need are the documents, you need them to be correct, apostilled correctly, and then from there we will handle the rest of the process on the ground in Paraguay, bar about 2 to 3 hours on the ground in Paraguay when you arrive, where we process the initial phase of your application. If you are interested in learning more about the intricacies and the details of Paraguay residency, along with the banking and getting into the credit system, our Paraguay Residency Essentials course is linked below. If you are serious about obtaining your residence in Paraguay and you want a detailed breakdown of the documents, the banking system, what that looks like in Paraguay, getting into the credit system, and so much more details surrounding the actual process of residency. If your family can join you, do you need to speak Spanish? Lots of these little details that many of our clients have when they are thinking about initially obtaining residency. The link is below for that. Now, moving on to the time frame and what this looks like for the residency process. So in the past, it would take a little bit longer. It typically took around 6 months. We saw in the past few months, but now it will typically take about 1 to 2 months to get your initial residency. And then after that, and this can always vary depending on the amount of applications that are being processed, but as of right now, we see about 2 to 4 months to process the cedula, and this is a very standard processing rate. It can be sped up, but we typically see about 1 to 2 months for the residency, and then about between 2 to 4 months for the cedula. Now, in your first trip, you will be processing your residency, and then you will have to come back. And if your documents have expired after that 6-month period, then you will also need to obtain new documents. Now, next up is the tax ID, also known as the RUC in Paraguay. So this is something that can be obtained throughout the step process. So the first step is the residency, then you have your cedula, and then we need you to have your cedula in order to process the tax ID. Processing your tax ID can be done remotely. You do not physically need to be in Paraguay, but you do need to have your cedula, as we need a photo of you holding your cedula to actually process the tax ID. Now, the tax ID is not something that we necessarily recommend for all clients. If you are looking to have your tax residency here in Paraguay and to spend some time here, then it can be very beneficial to have your tax ID here. But if you have another beneficial jurisdiction where your business and or personal taxes are already set up, it may be less advantageous for you to also gain the tax ID, the RUC, here in Paraguay. We also have many clients who are looking to leave their typically Western country full time, and they're not planning to come back. They're looking to move their crypto, their investments out of the country. In that case, Paraguay is not always the most beneficial jurisdiction, especially when it comes to banking and investments. So it does very much so depend, but for the right individual, tax ID can be very beneficial in Paraguay, and it's something that we can certainly assist. Now, we do have another video on the accounting that is required for the RUC in Paraguay, but just to very quickly go over what the details entail. So if you do have tax ID, then you are required to do a monthly filing. Now, if you don't do this filing monthly, or you do it incorrectly, then you can be fined up to 50,000 guarani, so around $10 by the Marangatu system and by the government. So you do want to make sure once you have the tax ID that you are filing. Even if you have no movements, which if you're not in Paraguay, then likely you won't have movements, you do still need to file 0 and simply submit a 0 filing return monthly. Or if you do have movements in the country, you're collecting facturas, whether you're looking to get into the banking, the credit system, which we assist clients with, then you want to make sure that you do have movements and that they potentially meet a certain monthly amount in order to really get you into the banking system in Paraguay. This and so much more we go into detail in other videos linked above, and also much more detail in our course, which is linked below if you're interested in obtaining Paraguay residence and becoming a tax resident here. So lastly, it's very important to note that if you are wanting to obtain your residency in Paraguay, while you do need to physically be in the country twice as it currently stands in order to process process both your residency and your cedula. We will mail all of the documentation to you. You can come to Paraguay and pick it up, but if you're not physically in Paraguay, we will mail your residency and your cedula to you once that documentation is processed, so that once you enter Paraguay, again, you can use your cedula along with your passport to enter the country and ensure that you have been in the country for your certain amount of days that is required. We've created various videos on this channel about Paraguay residency, accounting, but also lifestyle in Paraguay and what it actually looks like to live in Paraguay. We also have a walking tour channel where you can simply see the streets and the city of Asuncion itself. So all of those links are links below for the walking tour and for some more behind the scenes of what it looks like to live in Paraguay and life itself in Asuncion.